main thing to take away from inquiry method as we're applying it at Kaufman Lynn is that it's a methodology that is fundamental to our happiness and success in life. I mean, that's as simple as it can be. And when practiced, it creates an openness in life, in business, camaraderie with your fellow associates, a much deeper relationship with our clients, a much better relationship with our subcontractors, and that all then relates to the success on projects, the accuracy in bidding, and just the better process of internal management and external management of the company.
So if we can create an environment that we're actually excited to step into, where we're actually engaged, where we're actually pulled forward into our day, that there's a whole nother context where work starts to take on a different meaning. Unfortunately, in all our training and in our school, we haven't been really taught to enjoy it. We haven't been taught to engage. We haven't been taught how to really participate in work as play, in work as really giving our gift, and work as a place where I can uplift other people, inspire other people, mentor other people. And so this is really the intention of inquiry management, is that we set this context for everybody having this place where their work is art, where their work is not just something that you're told and forced to do in a certain way, but it really becomes a part of your own expression in life. So then, what are the tools to do that? And the extraordinary tool that I found, and I found it, just coming into this business that I have of consulting with people, is that we can really use the tool of inquiry, asking questions, being curious, being interested in other people to uplift other people. And opening, the whole intent of the beginning of the session is just it's all about that. Is just say, my intent is to be totally safe for you. I'm here, I'm interested in your success, I'm interested in your well-being at the company. You represent me in the company, your success represents my success in the company, and I'm really behind it, and I really want to see you succeed. And if we, we want to find where you succeed and how you succeed, and I want to help you get toward what your goals and your ambitions are. And then you could just say, are you aware of anything I'm doing or anything between us that would get in the way of our safety? My first question, once we've established and worked with the safety, is then to say, what have been your challenges in the last week? Or, sometimes I say, when did you lose the thread? It's really great at the end of your sessions to say something like, how do you feel? And it said, hey, actually I feel lighter. And to get people to anchor into that feeling and say, hey, I just want you to notice how long you carry that lightness and when you lose it. And let me see if you can figure out the moment you lose that, whether it's running into somebody or showing up to the job or a certain thing, because that is the challenge that takes us out of that lightness, and I call it buoyancy, right? So in most of our cases is that we should end our mentoring session, the other person should feel more buoyant or lighter, like there's been a burden lifted. And then the challenge is when we stub our toe and then we get the burden back on us. So, what increased your burden? Where did you stub your toe in the last week? You take that issue, and not by your authority, but through inquiry, asking them about the situation and what the solutions are. Every time you clear that up, you've cleared that up pretty much for all time. That mistake, that stumble won't happen again if you've been thorough and deep enough in resolving it so that they really understand it. Anticipation, how do you feel about this conversation with the architect, or whatever it is that's coming up? You feel comfortable with that? Any resistance, any concerns about that meeting? And then they can share with you, and how could you address that? How could you be prepared for that? Again, you're working it through it together. It's like, not like but like, let's work this through together and kind of strategize and anticipate your week ahead. And just that setting them up is going to be a huge increase in efficiency. and a huge increase. There's, we're kind of like this, I'm resisting this. Oh, what are you resisting about that? Or what's hard about that? Going to be hard about that. Let's work through that so they don't need to carry that resistance through or fear through their week about how they're going to deal with that. And it might even be appropriate to say, hey, why don't I come down and just back you up for that meeting? Or maybe I could be there to support you. Would that be helpful? Or, those kind of things. So there's all sorts of ways that you might find that you could be of help or support. Priorities, and this is really a key cornerstone of inquiry management, is that we want everybody keeping a list of their priorities, the to-do list, and prioritizing them. And we want to have them doing that every day, updating it, moving it around, those kind of things. And the reason is because a lot of the strategic miscommunication and even tactical miscommunication is an unclear relationship with the priorities. So that's where things get missed. So this is a real way for you to keep track of, and also for you to be accountable for their priorities. Because and this creates security for you with your with your supervisor, right? So if you come to them with the list of your priorities and you do them in that order, and they say, why didn't you get to this? You say, there must have been some miscommunication because last week we talked about that this was more important than this. And they go, oh yeah, I guess so.
Aligning priorities with your direct report is the key to the energy flow. So if I'm working with Chris and we align our priorities and we're clear on that, and he's working with his 3 or 4 direct reports and they get clear on their priorities, and then so on down the line, then everybody in the company is working to the highest and best use and working on the priorities that drive us to the goal, drive us to the mission of the company. And so we may go through our meeting on Monday, and his one-on-ones happen after that, and he sees a redirection of those priorities. It just checks back with me and said, hey, the 5 that we lined up, I'm thinking number 2's got to come to the surface because of these reasons. And just keep that alignment with these little course corrections over the course of the week. And if, when we get into all of this functioning and those priorities lined up from layer to layer to layer to layer, the efficiency in the company just skyrockets. It's exponential.
The next one is numbers, and numbers with each one of your direct reports is that you need to create a set of values that measure what you care about with them. And whatever you measure is going to create accountability too. And it's not right or wrong, it just opens up another question. So once you have this larger company accountability, you're going to ask your direct report which of these numbers they have the biggest impact on. And you'll pick a few of those numbers that you want your direct report to focus on. And you guys are going to decide, we're going to measure your impact on this number. So with each one of your direct reports, all the way down, you just want to decide what that's going to be. The key to accountability is the numbers you decide to monitor, right? So if you find something's not happening, you need to adjust those numbers and start measuring what you want to have happening, right? So the priority list is a measurement, right? What are our priorities? This is the next measurement. This is the next place we can check in with what's happening or not happening. So over time, you need to determine for each person what exactly the numbers are and then be consistent about charting those, tracking those, and identifying those with each one of your direct reports. What are your ambitions? What do you want economically, professionally, personally? And write it down. Review the progress, setbacks, and strategies for success. You continuing to bring it back to them shows your interest and your support for their success. And this is also where you start to recognize if there's an imbalance between where they are and where they want to be. And that's a big place where we're going to lose people to other, get seduced away to other companies is if they don't really see their capacity to be successful here, and don't feel like this company's behind their success and their ambitions. So this is where, we create this parallel working together, to really get everybody to where they want to be and to experience what they want to experience. It's not all necessarily economic It could be, well, I want to be in this position. I want to be on these kind of projects. And that's wonderful to know. And you might say, well, we're in the multifamily housing and you want to be, in parking structures or whatever. And say, hey, I'd like to share that up the line so that's your ambition, because I'd like to help you get into that and let people know that you're interested in making a horizontal move over into that kind of work. Great. So we're going to look for an opportunity for you to do that. The next one is direct reports. So that's asking them, how's it going with your mentoring? And what are your challenges in mentoring? And where do you get stuck? And who do you resist most? What are your successes? What's the best thing that happened in one of your mentoring sessions last week? All those kind of things. So we're in dialogue and communication. And that's, again, how you create accountability. I might have some resistance. I might not just come out with, I'm having this challenge. You may have to ask.
It always comes back to, if something's not happening with your direct reports, it always comes back to what you're inquiring into and what you're doing about it. And so when there's a fundamental breakdown, when we have a project that, whether it's an actual construction project or a piece of managing a process on that job that doesn't happen, and it comes up in our one-on-one, mine and Kyle's, eventually through inquiry, it always bubbles up to my level.
That's right.
It is my issue. I've got to be the one that's holding the accountability or creating the accountability around it.
Yeah.
And once you kind of come to terms with that, it's easy.
Cultivating in self, that's kind of like ambitions, but this is really around personal development. What characteristics, what qualities are you interested in developing in yourself professionally? So it could be patience, it could be inquiry, it could be not being anxious or not being stressed or being more calm or being more focused. So it's just another way to keep attention on ourselves as growing people. What are we growing professionally? And how often are we really reminding ourselves or thinking about what we're growing professionally? So as soon as you speak it to your supervisor, all of a sudden you've created accountability on it. And so next week they can say, oh, how's it going with your focus? Or how's it going with getting enough sleep? Or how's it going with, showing up on time? Or what are these qualities that we're developing professionally? And again, it creates this culture of personal growth within the system that keeps this feeling of momentum. It keeps anybody from feeling stagnant. It keeps this energy going and this culture where we're talking about how we're growing. The next section, what I'm aware of, that's just I noticed. That's the I noticed section. To be seen for something is the most reinforcing of any behavior. So, well, I really noticed that you've been getting this in on time. And that's just so reinforcing. Oh, yeah, great. It's appreciated, it's acknowledged, it's valued, et cetera, et cetera. You can also identify something to work on, refine. As I noticed that your desk's been a little messier. I noticed that, we've been running behind on these things. And then ask, do you have a sense of what's behind that? You can also do that on the positives. I mean, the things that say, hey, I noticed that you've always get these things in. What is it that you do that makes that possible? Oh, I make them a high priority. Oh, I see. So when you make things high priority, they happen. Ah, yeah. In your shoes is an opportunity to kind of share your own wisdom. That's kind of the mentor place is saying, you've got a new job starting next week. You haven't even touched it. And I'll tell you, but we've already talked through all these other things. They say, one of the things in your shoes that I always did was in a new job is I made sure and I looked at the manual for that job and I made sure that I knew these points about it. So, maybe would you like to walk through and look at that? Again, everything's by invitation. Would you like to is what creates a mental shift in the brain from resistance to engagement. When you've got an inner no, then that blocks you from receiving the information. And it doesn't come through. It obscures your vision, it obscures your hearing, it obscures your ability to learn and receive when you're in a no. And that's, again, why inquiry method is so important, is because if you can get somebody to say yes or even acknowledge the no, then you can work with the no before you go on any further. Organizational assessment. So and this is another really important one. This is how we get the pulse on the organization. And by pushing this up, so you also want to be asking your direct reports about what they've heard in their organizational assessment from their direct reports. So this is where Mike actually gets the information about what's going on in the company, what the perception is about different initiatives, or what the perception is about the new measurements, or the perception about these things. What are you feeling about it? What are you noticing and hearing around you in general? Because we want to be, usually it's the top person that's the last one to know, right? The person that most needs the information is the last one to know about these things. And if we can create, again, the upward informing about what the mood or what the atmosphere is, what's going on, we're getting to a place where that problem can be addressed in a way that serves everybody. And then as you have more time, it's, part of this caring is being interested in the well-being, the life balance of the person, how they're feeling, how their life is working, are they healthy, are all these things that also affect, the well-being of the company. Because if they're out of balance in those things, a lot of times they're bringing that into the organization. This is useful time for sharing or bonding. What hobbies are you interested in now? What's going on for you? How's your life? What are you interested in? Just any of that sharing kind of bonding time is just, again, creates those interconnections, that value that we receive by being part of a team, a collective.
The vision for incorporating inquiry method and inquiry management at KL has come from the traditional view of construction in our industry, and that is it's really a commodity. But I wanted a differentiator and something that provided an extra level of service and value to our clients in the long-term effort of growing our business and becoming successful in it. Then when you take it home and you apply it to your personal life, you create this very neutral balance that provides you a platform for real joy. So, when you talk about things like joy and abundance and fun and play in the context of work, it's kind of foreign to most of us, and frankly, it was very foreign to me. But when inquiry is applied properly and really becomes part of one's culture, those things become natural, and that's why we do it at Kaufman Lynn.
And that's really the possibility of walking into work each day because you want to, not because you have to. The possibility of having every part of your life be a want to, not a have to, is really at the core of inquiry method and this approach.